2-2 lock, it's happening. First game, also happening.
It's actually happening literally right now. Let's go into it. Nova MS versus Green Leaves, our first quarter-final winner of this goes on to play Talon, and the winner currently, Green Leaves, in possession of the points.
They certainly are, 14% and ticking up. And look, Nova looked pretty good last week. Can they keep that performance up? Because Green Leaves looking to see how far they can get in this playoffs today.
It's already a reasonable start in this fight now for Green Leaves. That EMP coming out from Yom1 a little bit late to the party, but Kerberos makes it count for something with the stick, and now starting to run down a few more members. It's going to be a bit scrappy as the DPS is starting to duke it out, and Yom1 and Kerberos are getting a reasonable amount of work done. It may well be that Nova MS can flip this point, but in this entire time, Green Leaves have been ticking up percentage.
And those are the two names I'm focusing a lot on right now, Yom1 and Kerberos, the two new members on this Nova squad that made a huge impact. And in this current meta, we're in the 2-2 meta, can they make the same impact? Because Green Leaves, Sashimi, he's got himself two, he's still hold on to the cap.
That's the other thing you do have to be mindful of Hashimi and 10. Again, having both really demonstrated their chops in the last few weeks. Hashimi especially on the Pharah, and I mean, we saw that just then, right?
Also have Cloud back in the mix. So last week we had Green Leaves not quite have their full roster available. Cloud was missing for whatever reason, so they had to make do with 3 of their DPS players, one of them playing on that flick support role. Now that they have all 6 available, it's just going to be good enough. One already down Cloud, first one down.
Bit of an awkward EMP, but the numbers advantage should at least be able to do the work for them. Pulse one goes wide from Kerberos, and now it's 10's turn to fish for a stick. That's a couple of kills being picked up already, though, by Nova MS. This may be Green Leaves just try to stall it to 99 and then let the point go. In fact, not even going to get it that far. 86% before Nova MS get the cap.
And Nova did spend in full EMP for that one, so they're going to have to be waiting a while to catch back up. But the other 4 ultimates looking pretty decent from the non-DPS side of things. They also have to, like you mentioned, they've got to do a decent amount of catch-up here. 86% in the lead for Green Leaves. Shimi now changing on to the Sombra as well. And for Green Leaves, they realistically only need to win about 1 fight here, so they can get that EMP up. Well, maybe they could, but actually, Shimi's thinking about staying on the far instead.
Decides he prefers himself that pick. And I mean, I suppose they're sticking with the Mercy as well, so it's not like they quite made the full change yet. 10 goes wide of the Pulse Bomb and able to pick him up with the Coalescence. Bit of a trade coming in though. Red Fox did not use the sound barrier, and now the rest of the fight starts to get very scrappy as the DPS start to look for picks. Cloud commits a Coalescence. Green Leaves may have just decided that this is the fight they're going to commit to with that res coming in on Sonairo. They can pick up some kills here, they can do this.
Nova's got a lot more to lean into here, though. They've got a lot of other ultimates. EMP being played again, 4 of them caught, including Cloud, who goes down.
Ting now wants to try and clear out this minefield. Starting to get a bit more progress on killing off those tanks. Pocky going to get demeked here. Sonairo Hacks are likely going to be finished off as well, and there was a brief period there where Green Leaves had a technical numbers advantage, but like you said, just with the extra tools at their disposal, Nova MS still not too much trouble navigating that fight.
What you can be pleased with if you are looking at Green Leaves so far is that they did force out the extra ultimates. We had this huge kind of 4 ultimate almost lead that Nova MS had. Most of those are gone now, including the EMP. That being said, Yom1 is halfway to the next one. This next fight is going to be very interesting because both teams now at 86%. You'd like to imagine whoever wins this one is going to take the round.
Certainly should be the case. Oh, Kerberos finds himself right in front of Sonairo. Didn't actually throw out the Pulse Bomb, wants to hold on to it. They've mowed down 10 early in the fight, though. That's already a big pickup when you consider ultimates are otherwise relatively even. And one of the other advantages they have is in with the Coalescence, already getting a lot of mileage out of that. On the other side, Rashimi not getting that same mileage out of the Rocket Barrage, and this is looking like it's going to be a wash for Nova MS, picking up our first map of Nepal.
There was only one last chance for Green Leaves. You saw the Rocket Barrage come through. Didn't get any kills from that one. Hashimi gets 1 kill just by himself afterwards. Then you have Green Leaves still dropping members. Even now, no one's alive to contest the point any longer, and Green Leaves couldn't quite catch up. Nova MS had another EMP to lead into towards that last engagement. Decent, lead that Green Leaves had in terms of objective early on, 86%, but Nova, once they got that point themselves, once they started leaning into their bank of ultimates, they never let that point go, and straight away we're into round 2.
I think it was one of the advantages of of running the Sombra there is if you got good EMP uptime, it's the sort of thing where you can just kind of seesaw between having that online and having all your other ultimates online.
We haven't even played a map yet where Widowmaker's a real factor, and that's realistically the one pick you want to see Yom1 on, especially later on in the series. That was what he really showed up on big against Talon last week, so you want to be able to have Nova MS pull that up from the back pocket a little bit later on. But speaking of Widowmakers, the Green Leaves, they're going to bring it up right now.
Just lining it up. Seeing what he can see. Love to see Oshimi and 10 get a good amount of value from this. They're also rolling out on the Orisa Hog, so they've got that extra crowd control as well.
The early point control, the early space control are going to be quite important. If they lose this fight, it's going to be much more difficult for them to push back in, and Green Leaves look like they may be cornered already.
Yeah, corralled into that corner and just starting to get picked off. They find the supports first, and the rest are all just sitting ducks without any sources of healing. And now these tanks, unfortunately, hit an even worse spot than those DPSs were a second ago. And that's going to be the fight and the point going the way of Nova MS.
And that's the thing, because Green Leaves didn't even actually cap, despite having their tanks on there early. They wanted to hold the ground. They wanted to play for space. That's great if you're playing Orisa Hawk. However, they couldn't quite get the rest of their team in a position to be useful, to really make use of those halts. And for Nova MS, they found the back line. Neither of the tanks are going to be there to support them, and Green Leaves just falter very quickly. Scenario, Pocky, both of them now changing onto dive tanks instead.
Yeah, this is a mirror between these two teams, and it means it's a mirror that Green Leaves are behind in terms of ultimates. Still a bit of a window before these ults get online. Yomon hacked out, can't use that EMP. That's actually a huge pickup for Green Leaves, really helps even up the tables, but it's the other ultimates that are probably going to win the day still for Nova MS. If they get a chance to use them, that is. That's a hack on a Ting to stop him from using the Primal Rage. Unfortunately, though, Kerberos still able to use the Pulse Bomb, connects it on Cloud, and then starts to run rampant on the rest of the squad.
And I think this is one of the things you have to be looking out for on this particular meta, and that is the Tracer play, especially on a control map. We've seen 10 dying quite a decent amount on that last round that we had on Village, so going into this, Kerberos has a pretty decent amount of impact so far. Pulse Bomb getting kills, running down Cloud as well. 5-man EMP now from Yomon. You expect this to be a win.
Yeah, especially with the extra damage just getting tossed in, instead of everyone and their dog piling on, so that one didn't even need to use any other ultimates. That's really the perfect fight for Nova MS.
And that just means they get to hold on to more resources. And this is a similar way how they won Village, which is to say, okay, they get cheap fights in there. One EMP is going to nail one, and then suddenly you got 5 more ults coming in. Kerberos likely to land into the Pulse Bomb, and that could be the fight.
Already the Coalescence just to hamper them on their march forward. Now the Self-Destruct to do the same. Nova MS decided to throw everything in quite early on. The Sound Barrier was there mostly to answer Hoshimi's EMP.
Pulse is gone.
That's decent. There has been a kill on a Ting, now in as well goes down. So Green Leaves have found their entry into this fight, having really got most of the key ultimates out of Nova MS already, and now piling in with a numbers advantage. They should be able to take possession at this point.
And Nova needs to now back out. Unless they get a huge string of kills to trade here, but seems like they will be resetting pretty soon. A Ting still has a primal range, and he was the only member hacked out by the EMP used by Green Leaves just earlier. This is from Nova kind of overextending slightly. They lose the use of their primal range. They couldn't then get a counter trade because the Pulse Bomb was eaten. Now they do have an opportunity to make something happen.
That late death on Hoshimi there was pretty brutal. Green Leaves are now kind of forced to take a fight without really the numbers to support it. It's Ting.
Ooh, barely got the jump in.
Yeah, if he'd been hacked any earlier than that, he wouldn't have actually been able to make that leap. EMP now coming up from Yomon though as he rejoins the fray. Has that up and available. Green Leaves really starting to fall here. They're going to try and keep this going with the Sound Barrier. Pocky gets back in the mech as well, but that's really all they had left to go on. Nice cancel the Coalescence, but Hoshimi pays for it with his life. Pocky going to go down here as well, and it's looking like Nova MS already back in possession of the point and at 99%, in command, in control of this fight, primed and poised to pick up Ilios.
And Sanctum going so much better for Nova MS. Nepal's the one we're talking about here. Yeah. And Nova, shouldn't be too much more difficulty, some slight mishaps there towards the middle point. Village was a lot more heavily contested. Again, we saw 86% on both ends of the court there for both teams being able to rack up percentage points. But on Sanctum, early dive comp coming through from the side of Nova MS. Orisa Hog on the side of Green Leaves not quite working the way they expected. Didn't want to re-push with that one, probably smart. It's going to be difficult versus dive, so they changed on the dive themselves. But because they were behind in the ultimates, because they had to be the ones changing comps, they were going to be trailing for a while before they could be realistically too useful. Eventually got a cap, but lead was too big from Nova.
So, of course, we are in the quarterfinals, which means this is actually a best of 5. We could only go up to those 3 maps, and the reason there are no maps currently up there is because loser will pick after each and every round, which means Green Leaves are going to be picking our Assault map.
And as a bit of a reminder to everyone out there as well, draws will not be counted in scores. So best of 5, first to 3, technically. Whoever gets the first 3 map wins will be taken out of the series. And we'll just, forget about any ties in the middle there. And, some of these maps coming up where we probably will see some ties, depending on how close these teams are. However, at the same time, I am expecting once the Widowmakers start coming out, once the Hanzo's coming out, both of those picks, double sniper is going to be the bread and butter for Nova on this patch. They have what looks like possibly the best two players in those two roles. Yes, I am even saying that in context of talent existing in this tournament, based on their performance versus talent. So Yeonwon going on the Widowmaker is going to put it's going to give a lot of trouble towards the side of Greenleaves.
Really sucked it to Patapan last week on that pick in particular. So I think Yeonwon's already very well established himself in the region, right, on that pick, and even just as a DPS in general. Like we were sort of saying it last week, you're always a bit nervous when a team makes a big shift up in their roster. Like this is both DPS positions being changed in what is the final week of the regular season. But I mean, it proved itself worthy. They did still lose that series, but they weren't necessarily expected to win it in the first place. But they did also look like a better team than they had previously, and that was with a season that, though shaky, was still a reasonable season for them on balance.
Yeah.
So coming into playoffs now, they are looking like one of our more serious threats.
And I'll be honest, there's a lot of other teams, that have made some serious changes throughout the season or even preseason going into this particular one where, okay, the roster's been shaken up. Jupiter comes to mind as a team that kind of really shook up their roster. Cyclone Coupling was one that did that halfway through. Global Esports as well. They made a decent amount of changes compared to last season. But why I'm excited about Nova MS's changes is because of how established some of those players are. The only new member here of the three new players that you don't have a history on is Kerberos. We don't really know where he comes from, but he's looking good so far, so you'll take it. You know that so far Yeonwon, he just came from Gigstar. Before that, he was on EXL, so he's had experience in both Pacific and also Contenders Korea. So this guy's a real deal. He knows what he's done. You also then have Piggy, who used to play in the Pacific region under the name Power. He was on Phoenix not that long ago. He went over to China and played on Lingan Esports as well. So he was pretty instrumental. He won Contenders China. He went to Showdown as well. So you have two players out of the three new ones, very well-known track records, and a new, I would say, rookie in the form of Kerberos, who's really making a name for himself now.
And that's interesting, right? In the context of this particular quarterfinal, it means that this is now a very different Nova to the one that Greenleaves beat earlier on in the season. And it's only recently that that's now the case, right? Like we said, this is as recently as just last week, and that's a really short kind of time. Usually if you're making a change, you put the members in, and you have like a week, maybe two, of sort of teething period. But Nova MS seem to have just skipped that altogether. They've just kind of come in really like hot out of the pan, I suppose, and with that, Greenleaves, like I said, they're now facing a much tougher opponent. I think we already saw that being evident on Nepal there. Greenleaves, it's not like they were getting completely barreled over, but generally speaking, on a one-to-one basis, they were being outclassed, and a lot of that was across those two DPSs.
And you're looking at a roster where, even at the start of the season, we saw Nova and we thought, okay, this is a roster that has really good individual pieces. How are they going to gel together? It was kind of middling. It was like, okay, now we're looking at the end of season roster where a team's still there, Innin's still there. These are both Pacific champions in their own rights. They both won a season. Innin, you could say, won twice, once on Hong Kong Attitude, once on Talent Esports. And then you have Red Fox, who is probably the only other member outside of Kerberos who doesn't quite have a title to her name, doesn't quite have as much, you would say, established reputation, but she's also been a veteran of the competitive scene in the Pacific region for a long time now as well. So she's no rookie here, she's no stranger here. Right now, this Nova MS roster seems to be the scariest version, seems to be the version that you have to be the most concerned about, being that they came, despite the result being a 4-0, being that they came reasonably close to Talent Esports. It was competitive. They didn't take a map, but to be honest, they probably should have taken a map. And now they're looking at this playoffs probably as low-key one of the favorites, to be quite honest with you. And they will come up against Talent pretty soon as well.
And that's the interesting thing, is you'd feel that, like, this is maybe the team that would be coming second place if these two teams between them and Talon were to meet in the finals. Unfortunately, that's not how that's going to happen. They're going to meet in a semi-final, and those get played just tomorrow. So we've already had, last week between these two teams. It feels Nova MS a big step up. Maybe could have, like you said, maybe even should have taken a map, but didn't. They've got a week to turn that around, right? They've got a week to turn that around to now go, okay, now we will actually take a map. Better yet, we'll take all of the maps and we'll go to the finals instead of you. If there is a world where Talon don't make the finals, for one thing, that is where that world comes through.
Yeah.
Additionally, I feel like that there is a world where that is the biggest challenge Talon will actually face in this tournament outside of the finals. I don't think the finals could be as challenging just because Nova MS really look that good right now.
Yeah, and they got a teaser of that just a little bit earlier, but that's still a match to wait for tomorrow, assuming that Nova MS are going to be making it through this quarterfinal. And speaking of T's, well, Assault's coming up next, map number 2, and let's go ahead and check out how that game mode works.
Welcome to Hanamura. This is Assault. 2 teams face off as either defenders or attackers. The attacking team has a limited amount of time to capture 2 objectives. First A, and then B. To capture an objective, the attackers need to stand within its range for a set amount of time. Defenders can delay capture progress by also standing in range. To resume capture, the attackers must force the defenders off the objective by any means necessary. If successful, they score 1 point and gain additional time on the clock. Now the fight moves to objective B. If even one attacker is on an objective when the clock runs out, the game enters overtime. This extends play indefinitely until either team is cleared away. The round ends when the attackers capture both objectives, or when time runs out. Teams switch sides each round. Whichever team scores the most points wins.
Map number 2 coming up is going to be Temple of Anubis, and to sort of add on to expectations here a little bit, Nova MS, if they're going to be the team that seriously challenge Talon as one of the favorites of the tournament, they need to look as dominant as Talon has throughout the entire tournament, which is to say, basically they should be beating teams like Green Leaves without any issue, without dropping anything, no maps dropped here. 3-0 honestly shouldn't be too unexpected for a team like Nova MS if they're going to go on to really take it to Talon. If they struggle against Green Leaves today, I no longer have the confidence that they may be able to take down Talon.
And that's kind of the reality, right? Because there isn't really much turnaround time. There is, like, it's not totally out of the question.
It's like overnight.
Yeah,
it's, like,
it's not totally out of the question to, like, maybe struggle against Green Leaves or, like, drop a map against them and then still look better tomorrow. But, yeah, realistically, if we want to say Nova MS are the team that could give Talon the biggest challenge of this playoffs, they need to demonstrate that aptitude right now.
Exactly what happens when a team is so far above the rest of the field. You need to meet them there.
Oh, Piggy's playing Roadhog.
What you want to see. That's how you know the world is right today. Roadhog is going to get a lot of playtime. Roadhog is going to get a lot of playtime in this particular meta where Orisa Hog is a big deal, snipers are a big deal. Green Leafs attacking here. Have read that this is going to be somewhat bunker defense. I mean, you got the Batista as well, so why not play the Genji? Why not play the Tracer?
Speaking of playing Genji and Tracer, substitution here. 50 is in over Hashimi right now because he has that Genji available.
And this is where now Nova MS additionally are playing the Hanzo main. This is a very common composition that we've seen across even Overwatch leagues, so...
Ooh, that's an ouch for Sonairo. A little bit in too deep there. Green Leaves are getting a bit of pressure on the point, but I don't see this lasting very long indeed. Going to prevent that third from going over as they clean up Pocky. First push, not a success.
And this is the other test as well for a team like Nova MS is how do they handle some of these other heroes, because we've seen Kerberos play the Hanzo. Okay, how does Yeonwon play the Hanzo? Is he going to be able to match up there? We haven't really seen May come out of this team yet, and Meg's a pretty big deal in this current patch, so Nova, if they can really do well with this comp here, again, gives you that confidence for later on.
You can see that Yeonwon knew the Tracer was around here somewhere and was trying to find it with the Sonic Arrow. Eventually found it with a regular arrow, but both are going to walk away from that. A little bit worse for wear, but now healed up.
10 still has a flank though, so can play into that a little bit later on. You can see that Yeonwon is still looking for that flank in case that 10 is going to make a big ramp around. And Green Leaves need to make a sort of setup where they can have a multi-angle dive. That's how you can break apart a bunker, and you can see a lot of members off angles, which is ideal.
This is the problem though, Cloud is not able to make the rotation, and Yeonwon knew it. He went out Hunter-Killer on Cloud, finished him off, and now they just collapse into what is basically a 6 versus 5 on the point itself. Green Leaves have bought themselves a third with that passage of play, but I mean, that's still so far from ideal.
Speaking of ideal, the ideal thing for Green Leaves to do in that situation is Cloud says he's being pressed, then they play for the 5v5, because at the same time, Yeonwon is also technically out of the fight for the amount of time he's chasing Cloud for, which to be fair wasn't that long, but Green Leaves had an opening. They're setting up for a dive. They're staging for this. You do have to press the go button. By the time they actually do decide to do that, Cloud's already dead and Yeonwon's already in position.
Piggy decides to commit himself a whole hog. It ends up being a 1-for-1 trade, but that's actually an advantageous trade here for Green Leaves because Sonara will rejoin this fight far sooner than Piggy will.
Yeah, there's no raise as well. Piggy, I'm thinking if maybe he'll swap here, but if they want a good shot at holding A, they'll keep this composition, but that just does mean that he will take much longer to come back. Still have ultimates available. Speaking of those, one's up.
Yeah, now suddenly it's even Stevens, and Piggy will actually be back before too long as well. That is a nice transcendence to nullify 50, who ends up just stuck in this tight little space with the Blizzard on top of him as well. That completely fell to bits for Green Leaves there. I feel like Nova MS just got away with murder.
As Transcendence and also the Immortality Field at the same time, so realistically 50 was not going to make any kills happen unless he can really take down the Immortality Field super quickly and then put the damage to the rest of the members and maybe find someone that's been isolated away from the Transcendence, but that's a really difficult spot for him to play in as a Genji. Green Leaves now under 1 minute remaining, about 40 seconds, and they've run out of most of their good ultimates.
They're also completely lacking in momentum. They're just to the point where they're trying to barrel straight through this choke point to begin the rotations, and they're just getting picked off. 10 goes down, Pocky loses the mech. This is just more time lost. They don't exactly have a wealth of time.
And to be fair, Nova MS, they still have a supercharge they can put down at any time, which is going to be very useful. Yon so as a Dragon Strike, their team plays off a supercharger super well. And the fact that it's a lot of extra damage on a lot of extra damaging members. Everybody can pop off it. Everybody can add that damage in.
There's that Dragon Strike out. Nice pickups though in the rotation. This time 50 able to isolate in and pick him up. And unfortunately that supercharger still hasn't gone down. There was never an ideal opportunity. Green Leaves finally find the commit they've been looking for, where they all pincer in at once. They all strike at the same time. They clear up a whole bunch of members.
And that looked like it should have been harder. That's a nice exit kill for Yomwon, though. It's just going to give Nova MS a little bit more time. Still somewhat even. It's going to give them a little bit more time to set up before Green Leaves are ready to push themselves. But Nova kind of just losing one member at a time there. Immortality Field, didn't really see that get used. Maybe it wasn't effective. Wasn't quite on the Transcendence yet. They just had a supercharger. Used the Dragon Strike, didn't hit anybody, didn't get any kills. And Nova just lost all their members super quickly. And now we're on to B. Green Leaves have 2 minutes and 30 remaining. Not really a snowball happening just yet. Waiting for the Dragon Blade and turning that into a Nano Blade.
The unfortunate thing is they're probably potentially rather going to have to do that still through a Transcendence. Here is the window. They need to get onto this one now before NN has that available. Still going to be a lot of damage, though, coming out from the Supercharger, and the window has firmly closed.
And it's going to be the same combo as well. Immortality Field, Transcendence, there's even like May Walls, there's even just May's Endothermic Blaster slowing you down. There's a lot of ways for the Nano Blade to be ineffective here, and I don't know how long 50 and Green Leaves can really bank on this being the combo that wins them the game, unless Nova, again, just somehow lose all their members one by one, or a good hack comes from 10, and we stop the Transcendence from coming through at all.
So the Supercharger, it's like, it doesn't get too much value, but it bought the time to charge up these ultimates, and now we're seeing exactly what we were talking about. Yeah, 50 is a sitting duck here. There's a Maywall there. There's a Dragon Strike above him. There's a Transcending Loose, what's his name? Zenyatta behind him, and they just can't get anything done with what should have been their big bankable combo. They're committing into this fight hard, though, with 10 getting raised, eats a stun, and that's 2 kills right at the same time as well. They were doing super rough. If 10 had been able to survive, nearly had an EMP, they maybe could have kept on the pressure, but a brilliant hook from Piggy to secure it.
Well, they definitely need a little bit more still. 1 minute 10 remaining. 50 still deciding Reaper's not bad here. They just want to get into this brawl. They want the EMP to go down. They want Green Leaves, well, Green Leaves rather want themselves to be able to really take a nice fight on the point. Trace will give you that same ability. This will be the last, realistically could be the last push here if they take a while. They can't afford one reset if they discover that one member goes down quite early, or the fight's not really going their way. They can do one quick reset and then that's it.
And they're pretty much going now. 10's in position. It's like rearing to go. He's like, guys, come on, are we going? Yeah, the hook came in on the side from Piggy, but that's a nice early pick on Yon1 as the EMP did come across, as well as a well-placed biotic grenade. But now Kerberos unhacked, ready to throw the Blizzard on the point just to hamper this offense. Ends up tossing it off to the side, and actually...
Very defensive.
Yeah, they've got the amplification matrix out as well to try and help that, but also the May will kind of partially blocks the firing line They're just sort of trying to hunker down for now and survive the worst of it. It sort of worked as they look to push back in now with this Transcendence and with Greenleaf's lacking in ultimates and now a kill onto 50.
But the Meg Wall also blocked out the self-destruct coming through from Greenleaf, so they were able to survive that one. Pocky now back in the mech, demeched again very quick, and 10's the only one alive.
And they're completely out of steam. It was very nicely handled when all was said and done by Nova MS. Had to commit everything in a super defensive way, but they knew that if they did that, they still had more to work with on the whole than Greenleafs, and Greenleafs would run out of steam. So, no percentage points on point B there for Greenleafs.
And that's the true way to run a bunker, where you can just hunker down in a corner of the map, or a side of the map which is difficult to attack, and then you have the shield up, you have the wall up, you have so many ways to defend yourselves, and then you put down the amplification matrix yourselves, and it's both offensive and defensive. You can take that May wall down whenever you feel like, and still have the bonus damage coming through from the rest of your team on one firing angle that overlooks the entire point. And Greenleafs ran out of steam, didn't have enough to play on. Still had 50 on a fresh pick as well, so you weren't going to see that ultimate come in. And a lot of time being spent on A means not a lot of time to work on for B. The snowball was very quickly denied. Again, Yom1 getting that first kill into 50, more important than you think, because if that doesn't happen, Greenleafs can push in very quickly onto B. But because that trade happens despite Yom1 dying himself, it still stops the momentum. It still stops Greenleafs from just walking into B before Nova MS is set up.
I feel like we are starting to see more or less the dominance we were wanting to see out of Nova MS that we were talking about just earlier in regards to what could be a potential semi-final against Talon should they win this. And I mean, the full hold on B kind of speaks to that. They're already looking even better than they did on Nepal.
I'm actually not a fan of the Junkrat on this particular bunker defense anymore. The reason you saw this on the last patch or the last meta was because as 3-3 was still a thing, that can still be run into, and the Junkrat takes care of that. The Junkrat actually kind of disincentivizes you to be running a lot of tanks, but as it's 2-2-2 now, and dive is a prevalent meta as well, Nova aren't going to really take too much damage from 50 unless they're just running into traps or running into grenades.
Yeah, even there, look at that. Kerberos, no issues avoiding the mine there. Does take them a little bit of a while to rotate, get into position, but they can do so safely. They're not overly threatened by Greenleafs. Oh, I say that.
And 10 has to be the guy that steps up there, because again, your Junkrat's not going to be the main damage dealer. Widow is versus a dive comp versus 2-2-2. At some point, I think if Nova are struggling against this, they are going to put one of their own players, Yom1 you would expect, on the Widow as well to try and challenge. But for now, Nova happy to just try and build up little percentage points they have so far on the ults.
I mean, also, we say 10's going to be the main damage output, and don't get me wrong, he is, but 50's actually past 60% ult charge. That's honestly not half bad. If they stall this for a little longer, he could well get a Riptire.
I also think Nova have been kind of passive so far, so they are eating a lot more spam. They are in a position where a lot more grenades can hit. Nova are going to put the nano boost in.
Yep, that's the thing they decided is the go button. Unfortunately, losing Red Fox in the rotation. That Riptire is nearly up here for 50 now as well. That's going to be a really dangerous one. Some kills starting to come through for Nova, but 50's got the Riptire. If he can get the right members down with this, it's going to be big. Finds in, which is decent, and also Piggy now demeched. Greenleafs still getting the better end of these trades.
The fact that Greenleafs kill Red Fox, and that's not the fight over, they still have to commit a Riptire because they lose too many members. The Riptire only gets one, and the fight's still not over. EMP being played, Nova can still do this.
I mean, they've got the closer respawn. They decide, hey, let's double down. 10, at least finding Kerberos there is helping still. Since Nova MS have doubled down, if this backfires, it could be extremely costly, but Ating still pressing on in. Nearly found 50, but unfortunately did not, and Yom1 goes down. That should probably be a fuller retreat from Nova MS than what it was earlier.
And at this point, I think Yom1 may be thinking about the Widowmaker. He is 40% on the way to the next EMP, but honestly, the last one wasn't as big as you thought, and Nova MS now in a bit of position where 2 minutes are gone, they have to start thinking about how do we actually get past this point. You have a Dragon Blade available, but I mean, safe up, but there's no Transcendence this time. 50 can still outplay the Dragon Blade somewhat if he places his mines well or the Steel Trap well. Greenleaf still have a decent chance here. Nova going to bank on this one ability.
The other counter play is if Kerberos gets headshot by 10. That puts a lot of pressure on 10. It's not really counter play more as it is a convenient pick, but that's huge for 50.
He's down.
Cloud. That is absolutely rough there for Nova MS, who have already been very slow on the plays here, and I mean, that's really starting to cost them. We're now just over a minute remaining, and they've yet to make any significant progress.
I'm pretty sure that was a double damage boosted volley coming up from Cloud as well. We had the right click, but it was also supercharged. It was also blue beamed by Xerafi as well. So he just one-shot Kerberos pretty much, and you're now at the point where, okay, Yom1's down as well, and he used the EMP, which didn't go through.
Man, any headshot that 10 isn't getting, Cloud's been cleaning up those same squishy members. Not always by way of headshot, mind you, but dude's definitely making his presence known.
That timing was disgusting because I was just going to say you still have the EMP available. There's still a decent chance here. Nova MS got something to work with, but now that the EMP's been used and it's out of there, they're just working with a nano boost and a self-destruct. 30 seconds remaining, 4 ultimates, nearly 5 online for Greenleaves. You are expecting now a full A-hold to happen.
I mean, I talked about Nova MS's dominance just before we went into this half, but the script's been completely flipped, right? Nova MS are floundering now. Riptide going to come out, does get the D-Mech on Piggy, but he can just self-destruct to preserve that. And forces the Transcendency out of Cloud. Self-destruct is going to be layered in the room by Pocky. And actually, Greenleaf's in a bad spot now. Unfortunately, didn't get any value out of a lot of their ultimates. They find Kerberos trying to make up for that with a bad start to the fight. Gets raised back in. Now 10 goes down. Oh, Jiminy Christmas. They're not on the point.
From dominance to dominance, Nova MS going to be unhappy with that result, and for good reason. I mean, now we're 1-1 in the series. Even if the old Charlie Niner doesn't come through there, there's a lot of people alive. Let's be fair, Kerberos just came back. Maybe he's not the one touching, but still, you got 5 other people out there somewhere, just not in the points, and that was looking dire. Even if they cap there, they've only got 4 minutes to push on to B. That still may be enough. That you have to start wondering, can they actually snowball through? A lot more questions. Based on how rough A was, it already didn't give you good signs of their ability to do what they would have to make some sort of a comeback plan for a team like Nova MS if they really want to be competitive in this tournament against teams like Talon, who are definitely favorites for the tournament. You don't want to see them in a comeback scenario. You don't want to see them in a comeback mode where it's like, we're behind here, we're down here, and we have to make something big happen to have a shot at winning this map. And, well, they didn't even get that shot because couldn't continue the cap.
Tell you what, and like this is no insult to Greenleaves, but if that was Talon on the defense, Nova wouldn't have even got the 56% that they picked up there on point A, right? Like, if that's how your attack gets played out, if you're that passive, if you're that slow to the play, and you're struggling to actually get any value out of your ultimates as well, your execution isn't there, Talon are not going to give you the time of day.
And I think Genji is still in a problematic area of this current meta where he's still kind of finding his place on where exactly he's going to get played, because there's still a lot of ways to kind of play a Dragon Blade. As you've seen now, you can just die pretty much straight up, even if you get nanoed. On both sides, I think both Genjis really struggle to make use of their abilities. And you have a case now where that particular matchup for Nova should have been better, because realistically, the one big thing that's going to stop you from being effective is going to be the Junkrat. The one guy who is, you know, for what I say about, he's not going to be the main damage dealer here. He's not going to do most of the work, but when you come down trying to counter Dragon Blade, he's probably your main dude. Outside of Cloud just one-shotting you through double damage boost, right? That doesn't happen every day, however. It was just unfortunate, because in that particular matchup, you do expect the Genji to be performing a little bit better than you have Yom1 dropping the EMP awkwardly. A combination of those things meant that both DPS were not as effective as you'd probably like them to be. And I would argue not on the correct picks. Again, where's the double sniper here? I want to see Yom1 back on the Widowmaker. I want to see Kerberos back on the Hanzo.
It feels right now like Genji is very feast or famine for teams that are choosing to run him, right? The reality is, like, a good nano boost, if you pick up like 2 kills, that's huge. It's still really bankable, right? And it is an ultimate combination that has the capacity to do that, right? But the problem is there are also, like you said, so many ways to counter it. So I always say feast or famine, and it feels like there are far more sure things or surefire options that Nova MS specifically have at their disposal. Like, even outside of the realm of going into double sniper, if they're really dead set on something more dive-oriented. Now, look, map geometry notwithstanding, you've got other options there, like running Tracer and Sombra. They've already done that to some success. It feels like they were brute-forcing a Genji that wasn't going to work.
I do also, you know, to make a counterpoint to my own point is to say that, okay, Genji and Sombra, that still works, because you want to put in the EMP, you want to have instant dive happen. Genji's going to be your guy to make the instant dive happen. But outside of that,
just add nano.
Just I don't even know.
Instant dive.
But let's be fair. Even when they added the nano, that first push wasn't that great. But there was some like okay pushes coming through. You're thinking this isn't going that well for Greenleaves. Maybe there's a turnaround here, but it also wasn't realistically going that well for Nova either. So now we find ourselves at the halfway point of the opening quarterfinal, 1-1 apiece. You're probably thinking Greenleaf's doing quite well right now, Nova. Still a few questions to be answered, and we'll see if we can get those answered for you guys right after this break.